This NASCAR Cup Series 2024 scheduled preview edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month and start making smarter bets today.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
We certainly hope that you had a wonderful holiday season. Welcome back to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. Hopefully Santa filled your stockings with all the stuff that you could possibly have wanted this year. I know that I got coal in my stocking, not even getting into it. This is a NASCAR podcast, not a how much I'm disappointed at my Niners podcast, but definitely a podcast for another day. Start off automatically with Rye in the chat. Here we go. Indeed, here we go. We had our break, Cody. It's time to hit it hard again as we start looking at the 2024 NASCAR season.
We're back. It's time. 54 days until the Daytona 500. Ty Gibbs days away from the Daytona 500. It's almost here. I'm pumped. I'm excited. Checking my stocking. Got some snow here, so I think Santa's just a little bit late. Don't see my Xfinity or Truck Series odds yet for futures, but Santa's probably just a little behind. So I've given the guy a little break. I'm sure by New Year's he'll be here, and we'll have those odds, hopefully. And then all my Christmas wishes will be fulfilled.
Yeah, unfortunately, he gave all of the presents that he was supposed to give to me to my daughters. So
yes, my
daughter
also got plenty of Christmas gifts. So yeah, hopefully his sleigh was full. Had to go back for a refill. He'll be back.
Yeah, he'll bring us some odds and we'll be okay with that. All right. So in the meantime, what we will end up doing for you is we'll go over this NASCAR Cup Series schedule for the upcoming 2024 season. Really, honestly, it's to sort of take a look at what we're in store for in the 2024 season, what we're up against. Obviously, there's some major changes as far as tracks are concerned. There's major changing as far as scheduling is concerned. And so as we start looking toward building our portfolio, we've already gone over the odds. We've already gone over the win totals. So we'll kind of go over now how this schedule will kind of factor into another edge of your building your 2024 card up, whether it's, championship odds, whether it's head-to-head totals, whether it's the myriad of what we went over, all the prop bets that we went over last week. I got to tell you right now, Santa may not have filled the stockings, but we sure as hell filled everybody's stockings last week.
That's right. Oh man, it's been So much fun. Again, so many options this year for the Cup Series so far. Waiting for the Xfinity and truck stuff still. I don't want to get too greedy, but it was a lot of fun. If you haven't listened, go back and check those shows out because we had 2 parts of the win totals to cover all of the guys that we got options for on being able to bet the wins. Championship futures, championship head-to-heads, all sorts of stuff. We just got done recording an F1 gambling podcast as well. That'll be out soon. Talking about what did we talk about there? Championship odds. We had multiple plans. We only got half of the plans in, but we talked about the championship odds, which was a lot of fun. And we'll have win totals for that coming soon as well. A lot of F1 futures out there also. So it's a great time. We're getting close. Like I said on the F1 pod, we're through Christmas now, almost into the new year. I mean, early February, we got racing already. We're just about a month away. I love it. It's great.
Well, and I joked around, but I think we're honestly going to do this. I think we're going to sprinkle in Formula E. If the books are giving us Formula E, I think we're going to sprinkle in some Formula E. So if you guys have wanted to fully dive deeper into the DGen world, we're going to start covering some Formula E. Not on this podcast. Cover us on the F1 or go find us on the F1 podcast where we'll cover Formula E as well. But I mean, there's so much stuff and it's all sprinkling out. So again, no odds to talk of right now, but that doesn't mean we can't set up the 2024 season for you and sort of go over what the schedule means. And obviously we'll answer some of your questions too, since we're going live with a lot of these episodes. We're more than open to answering some questions for you guys. If you have any pertaining to maybe what we went over last week or what you're trying to put together for your own card and maybe what the schedule does for you as well. So definitely. And now on Twitter, we can actually see the comments too. So if you tweet us as well at NASCAR Gambling, NASCAR Pod, Gambling Pod, then you can, definitely join in on the conversation as well there too. So very happy that StreamYard has given us that ability to do that as well. And of course, if you're listening on the good old fashioned Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you're listening to it, as always, the Discord is there for you as well. And we'll answer any questions in the off season as well. Maybe we'll have a full-on mailbag episode just to answer all of your questions.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. We need to do that. Maybe even figure out how to open up that one of those lines to people to call in.
Ooh, that's dangerous but fun. I'm looking for. I will hope that happens someday. Live callers. Can you imagine live callers?
Be a lot of fun. They're doing it over on the Big Pod now.
This is true.
Pretty good calls. So I like it. So might be something we have to look into eventually.
I agree. All right. Well, then I tell you what, we've got a lot to get to, obviously, with this schedule going on. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, let's tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog, as we know, has your way to play alongside of your favorite fantasy players all season long, or drive along with your favorite drivers all season long. NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, college football, NASCAR, F1. It's all there for you. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players' fantasy stats and cash in. Obviously, all season long, we're going to be giving you all of our favorite Underdog plays as we go along, all of our drivers to watch, all of our better than, worse than finishers, higher than or lower than finishers, all that stuff going on for NASCAR. So make sure you watch along, make your picks, maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up right now with the promo code SGPN, Underdog's going to double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Well, Cody, we start off, as Rye Cape says, a call-in line would be epic. All right, then we'll do it. We will make sure we figure out a way to get a call-in going on in the next couple of episodes. I'll work on it. I'll see how the big show does it. Maybe I'll sign up for one as well, but definitely looking forward to hearing people's voices. Or maybe not in some cases. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out.
That could be a dangerous tool, but you never know.
I love it. Maybe we need to get a call screener. That's our next
yeah.
A call.
We'll see if we get a budget for a call screener.
All right. So the 2024 schedule begins on February the 4th. I guess we'll call it the unofficial kickoff to the official kickoff of the season, where once again,
you can bet on it. So it's an official kickoff.
Right. And once they gave us odds for that, everything was over. That's when it all turned to DGen Nation for us. The Busch Clash, or the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. once again in LA. I think this is the last season in LA, right? Or they're going to try to shop around and see you to move it around.
I believe the original deal was for 3 years, so this will be the third year. So whether it moves, the problem is weather, right? You can't really put it in New York in February or Chicago in February. So we'll see. I don't know what other options they've explored. I mean, we know that new NASCAR, right? They are willing to go different places and try different things, which has been great. So we'll see. But yeah, this very well could be the last year. We'll see if Auto Club, whatever is going on there, is not ready by next season, which it likely will not be at this rate. They might want to keep that LA, California crowd in there. Who knows? We'll see. It'll kind of be interesting to see how that shakes out. But yeah, potentially, I think this could be the final year of the Clash at the Coliseum specifically.
Well, and I know that there's going to be several different circuits actually running in that weekend too.
Yeah, can we get some NASCAR Mexico odds, please?
Let's go. I mean, imagine that, right? Imagine us being able to cover NASCAR Mexico odds. That would be.
I mean, they're going to be running right there with the Cup Series, like no Xfinity or trucks that weekend. Like, yes, give us some NASCAR Mexico odds again. We'll dive into that and see if we can catch some tickets.
I don't know if it's because we live in a bubble, which, by the way, I don't ever want to leave this bubble. I'm fine with
this. This is a great bubble.
This bubble to me, I would live in this bubble forever. If I could live rent free, I would live in this bubble forever. But I would think that there are people out there that would bet on this. I mean, we see it every day in and I got a host right here that would do it. I'm just saying there is a market for this, and I would love and implore. We know that we have books that are listening in our F1 channel, especially, but if there's any bookmakers that are in our NASCAR Discord channel or listen to this show, just try it. What is it really honestly going to hurt for you to list? I don't know what the resources it takes to create odds, but I would assume that the risk and the reward are probably.
If you need help, give me a call. I can help you. I would love to jump in and help you with this. Right. So
yeah.
I mean, how do you not like it? It'd be such a great opportunity. Again, like a lot of eyes get shifted over because you're between the championship games and the Super Bowl in the NFL, and the Pro Bowl's happening that week. The flag football game. Who the fuck cares? Nobody does. Nobody's watching that. Oh, okay. So you care for that reason. Outside of that, nobody cares. But yeah, you're gonna have people betting on the Cup Series race. We cashed Priest was top 4 to 33-1 last season or something. We hit that. He probably should have won that race, which would have been even more epic. But yes, like give us the Mexico race. I don't remember. I have to look. I think that might be the day before or whatever. But yes, please give us the opportunity to bet on that. I mean, we just had the Snowball Derby. We had odds on that. We were able to talk about that. It was a fun time. So yes, if we could get some NASCAR Mexico odds, which it's going to be fun to watch that race too, because it's guys we're not used to seeing and names we're not used to seeing and different styles and everything. Be fun to see those guys, out there on the track tearing it up in that before we get to the big boy show on Sunday.
I guarantee you I'm going to be watching it. So if I'm going to watch it, I might as well have some stuff.
Something to bet on.
I'm telling you, it makes everything a lot more interesting. So that clash is going to be fun that weekend. And of course, like we said, if they do end up giving us some odds on the NASCAR Mexico, that would make it even all the more better. So books, again, if you are listening, there will be a market. I'm sure you will find plenty of people in our Discord that are willing to bet. Hell, if you're listening right now on any of your devices, go ahead and throw that in the comment right now. We'll say that your sample size, your one vote equals and speaks for about 10,000 other people out there. I'm making it up, but it sounds good, right? So, raise your hand if you would bet on NASCAR Mexico. Well, Cody votes as 10,000. I'll vote as 10,000. It's all academic from here. And
Rye's raising his hand in the chat.
Rye says, I'll bet on it. Whoops.
He'll bet on it.
There you go, Rye.
There we go.
True DGen status. Always standing up for the little guys.
That's right.
All right. Let's move on to that Daytona weekend, right, where we begin with the duels, the blue-green vacation duels 1 and 2 over there on the Daytona International Speedway, beginning speed weeks for us there. Same old, right? I mean, obviously, we talked about the driver changes last week and what that's going to be.
Super speedways.
And Cody's favorite way to not have Christmas in 2024 is to bet on super speedways. But
and they give us odds for the duels. It's great. It's wonderful. You can play DraftKings contests for DFS on the duels. Oh man, it really gets the juices flowing for the Daytona 500. So looking forward to that. Don't worry, we will have full up. That's a great thing too. Is like we don't have to wait for the Daytona 500 to be betting on these. Like we're gonna have Clash. We'll have full cards. We'll have DFS. We'll have. I mean, like I said, we cashed on Priest top Ford last year, and then for Daytona, leading up to the 500, we'll have this into trucks, Xfinity, obviously. Before you head into the Daytona 500, I've heard that's a big race, I guess, and it's been won by long shots the last couple of years. So get those long shot tickets ready.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun week all the way heading into it. And, of course, plenty to talk about. As you said, we have full cards for just about everything leading into the granddaddy of them all, the Daytona 500. That is the February 18th. So mark your calendars for that one. That is when Daytona will be to start off the official beginning of the 2024 season. And where obviously we're going to be cranking this stuff out at the beginning of February. So obviously, like Cody said, we only have a month left of where we won't have many odds to talk about. So definitely good. The daughter's joining.
My daughter's apparently she's hijacked my YouTube's thing. I love you too, kiddo.
We love it. Hi.
She made me a beautiful dinner. We had a nice little date before this, so very sweet. So shout out to her. She's pretty awesome.
It was a nice spread. I'm a little jealous. That was a pretty decent little spread that you had going on.
Yes.
So
I sent her out a picture. It was absolutely delicious, and she took good care of me. It's snowing again. Boy, we got a lot of snow the last couple of days. Snowing again, so we had a nice little backdrop for our little dinner. It was wonderful.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Gotta love it. All right. So then from Daytona, we moved the next week to the Ambetter 400, which is actually Atlanta, right? So Atlanta is the second race.
Back-to-back super speed. Oh, you're talking my love language here, Rod. Back-to-back super speedways to open up the season.
That's crazy.
This is what a great move by NASCAR, right? You advertise leading up to the Super Bowl and football's over and everybody's, okay, we'll watch NASCAR. It's still cold most of the country. You're stuck inside. You watch the Daytona 500 and right, he's throwing me off with his comment. Good thing you cleared that up. Would look a little weird if I was commenting to myself. So but it does look strange. But anyways, so you get all this build up, right? And then you have a great Daytona 500. It's this epic finish. And then the next week you go to another super speedway. So these people who tuned in and they're like, okay, I like that. I'll take some more of that. They're tuning in next week and they get another one. And then you get that hook a little bit deeper in there before you start going to more normal tracks. And of course, Vegas will be next and more of your cookie cutter mile and a half, which has been great racing the last couple of seasons in this new car too. But to start off with two super speedways, as a guy who loves betting on super speedways, fuck yes, sign me up. Like, I think this is a great move by NASCAR. And I think they're really, the way they position these super speedway races this season, being that there is 6 of them now, as Atlanta is a super speedway style of race and is considered a super speedway at this point. Man, I think they hit the ball out of the park with scheduling it this way.
Well, and it's a departure last year. So if you're kind of figuring it like, oh, what the heck are they talking about? Well, last year, the second race of the season, and for a very long time, the second race of the season was in California. It was Fontana. It was the Auto Club, and now that's not anymore.
R.I.P.
So I know, right? Well,
yeah, if you've seen the pictures, it's so sad. It's gone.
Yeah.
Hopefully they build that track they've been talking about, because kind of sounds like that might not be happening, but who knows? But hopefully we'll have a track at Auto Club once again in the future. But unfortunately, nothing there as of now.
Yeah, but then they moved up Atlanta basically a full month above what everything else was, because it used to be.
What's the weather like in Georgia in February? I guess, I mean, it's south still, so it should be fine, I guess. But
I would say that it would probably be good.
I would imagine they wouldn't schedule here if it was going to be too bad. But
yeah,
it will be interesting to see what the weather ends up. I mean, shit, it was snowing in California last year at Auto Club, so who knows?
Well, it was like the one time in the entire world that it started snowing in LA. So I mean, I guess we can't even. What's weather like in California? Well, it's supposed to be sunny, but guess what? It never rains in Southern California.
There we go.
Until it does, then it snows. So we go to back-to-back super speedways, esque racing. Just an interesting move. I'm gonna be curious to see how it pans out, because obviously we know that super speedways, anything can and will happen.
Does Kyle Larson's championship odds just skyrocket after he has like 2 40th place finishes in a row?
That might be where you start looking at a Kyle Larson future bet right after these two.
He's 38th in the points after 2 races, and you're like, oh, okay.
The books probably aren't fooled at that point. They're like, you know what? Nah.
Hopefully they are.
Well, you would hope so. We'll keep.
That would be a good time to get in on them.
That would be a fantastic time to get in on it. Speaking of fantastic time to get in on stuffs, let's tell you about a fantastic time to get in on Hall of Fame bets. If you're not already using it, you need to win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. You can research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Just make yourself a smarter bettor overall. You can enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame bets revolutionary parlay optimizer tool. You're going to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Plus, you can sort all players by hit rates for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. So stop betting in the dark. Join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame bets. We move on, and Viva Las Vegas retains its 3rd place spot in the schedule. In March, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, you get the Pennzoil 400. Once again, in that 3rd spot in the schedule, so no change there. But you start to get into the mile and a half, right, where you're just kind of calming down after the super speedways and kind of taking a quick breath. But, listen, for me, Las Vegas is a staple. And in March, again, the weather's not going to be bad, obviously. So not much changes there. But really,
is the weather bad there ever?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been there some pretty bad weather. Nick Fortune jumping in the chat asking if we got a call in yet. Almost, Nick.
Not yet. I did hear. I was listening to the big show live this morning. They were actually on, and Nick called in. Little sad about his 49ers. I know you guys are in the same boat there. I think again though, like. This sets up so nicely for you guys, right? You meet again in the Super Bowl. It's that big revenge spot. I wouldn't be too worried. Your team's pretty good.
And let's be honest with you, we already lost once to them in the Super Bowl, so the Ravens are not a team that we haven't, historically been good against.
True.
Anyways, I was hoping for a better Christmas. Obviously, I didn't get it, but whatever. I'll just take it and go. Like you said, this is going to be a great learning
better
tool.
To get your losses in now and then avenge it later.
Yep, I'm good with that. Speaking of avenge, like we said, this mile and a half placement after 2 super speedways, I don't know what it does for the drivers mentally to go back to back on super speedways, because we know how mentally taxing pack racing is. And then to be able to, before it used to be, Daytona 500, the build up, all of the anticipation, and then you got to go to Fontana and sort of, unwind from all that on a semi cookie cutter track. And then Vegas, and then, all that. But now it's like high intensity. Now you get to come down a little bit. So is the hangover from back-to-back super speedways, how much do we take that into consideration as we move into the betting aspect of it?
Well, I don't want to say you get too much early season desperation, but if a guy like a Kyle Larson or anyone else has to, gets caught up in 2 wrecks early on in these 2 super speedways, and you do have a Chase Elliott type or a Kyle Busch type in there, 35th in the points going into this race. It's a long season, and if you get a win, you're fine. But already you're starting to look at it and you're like, okay, maybe I need to start, overcompensating, maybe get something like that. But I think it's kind of the next good race to put in. The mile and a half racing has been great. Again, keep the new fans kind of hooked moving forward. The mile and a halves have absolutely delivered. So very excited to see that one.
Yep. And then followed right thereafter by the other race that is always, I love the West Coast swing early because the weather's always great. The Phoenix Raceway for the Shriners Children 500. So you go super speedway, mile and a half super speedway, mile and a half to now a mile. It's this progression of track differential is never going to let any driver get comfortable. So obviously
we talked about the last couple of seasons, how well they, it's not been, I mean, you're going to get two super speedways, but even then there is some differences, and super speedways are so unpredictable. You can't get too comfortable anyways, but yeah, it's great to see again the progression, and it's going to continue as we go to the next two tracks because they're different styles than we've been on so far too. So yeah, I mean, again, Phoenix in the spring. Do you just make this a test race? Like, I think if you're a person that thinks you're going to be, in the championship race later on, like, we know how just important, like, if you can get to Phoenix, how important doing well at Phoenix is. Obviously, it's the championship race. This is your early test. Now, a lot of things change, right? And William Byron, Kyle Larson were really good in this race. You get to Phoenix in the fall, and they weren't as good. So things change. Temperature's going to be different and all of that. But I think maybe you just use this as a testing ground to start making get that notebook a little thicker for going there in the fall. If you're a team that thinks you're going to be competing in the championship 4 later on.
And really, when you look at this 2024 season and you just kind of remember that now we are taking, because you look at a track like Phoenix and the first name that jumps out to your face is Kevin Harvick, right? Well, that's no longer a case anymore. So now you just start looking at somebody else that's going to be a perennial top 10 person on these types of tracks. So, I mean, again, it's just a matter of looking at who's going to do well early in the season. And like you said, if it's a test, then do we approach this from a standpoint of, are we looking at teams that are going to be trying things out and maybe not necessarily trying to win this race as it were, but trying to see where they can get an edge in speed or whatever? It
might be especially notable, based on who wins the first 3 races. If you've got a Kyle Larson that's got a win in the bag, or a Denny Hamlin that's got a win in the bag, and in theory, you've likely punched your playoff ticket at that point, right? It's despite what the NASCAR interns will tell you on the X. Your playoff ticket is not necessarily punched just by winning a race, but you're in a pretty good position if you're one of those types of drivers. So maybe they may take even more of the approach of that. So be something to keep an eye on. I don't know that's something we've really seen in the past, but I think as you continue to look at it and continue to see how important that race at the end at Phoenix is, might not be a bad idea to really kind of throw some stuff at the wind and see what sticks.
Indeed. Speaking of throwing stuff at the wind and to see what sticks, dirt did not stick on Bristol Motor Speedway. It was after 3 years, Bristol will no longer be a dirt race in the spring. It will return to the Food City 500 laps around the short track. So in recap, we've got, again, 2 mile super speedway, mile and a half super speedway, mile and a half mile. Now we're down to a short track. So crazy. And now, like we said, we've taken the dirt off of Bristol. We are now running it as a concrete race once again. So that means that everything that we talk about in the second Bristol race comes back into play on this particular track now, because we're not worried about, are you good on dirt? Who's been historically good on dirt? Who cares about dirt now? We are back on to normal Bristol. So that definitely changes our strategy, right? And not just that, but where it sits in the actual season itself. It's moved up a couple of races.
Up to St. Patrick's Day now, aka Cody's birthday, which is a wonderful day. But yeah, moving up from that Easter time frame, right? I think dirt at Bristol was great. As Nick says, odd. Yes, it was odd as well. I think that dirt still has a place, and I think a place like Knoxville, Nick, would be a wonderful place to bring dirt to. I went to I went to that first Truck Series race at Knoxville. God, it was one of the most fun races I've ever been to in my life. I know it was a little tough on the TV crowd. So much fun. It was great. I think that an Eldora, a Knoxville, somewhere, like, we need a dirt track on the schedule. Nothing this season, which is okay. I think, again, that's something they should look at going forward again. I think it was a great thing to test, and I think it was fun, and it gave us a couple of fun years and good races and interesting scenarios, right? A Joey Logano winning, Tyler Reddick getting wrecked before cashing all of our bets, and a Kyle Busch getting his win, right? Some different things, but I think good to go back to regular Bristol, see how the fans respond, right? They've asked for it to be odd on Easter. They've asked for it to not be dirt. Better show up and fill the seats now, right? Or you're going to lose that second date, because that's how it works. Bristol is one of the classic tracks on the schedule. So it'll be good to see him go there twice. 500 laps, that's a lot of laps around a track like that. It always gives in for a good race. So again, I think the schedule makers have really just nailed it here, moving this race up and again making that progression to get to smaller tracks before we go to a really big track.
A really big track, because now, so if you look at the schedule, Bristol has leapfrogged Austin. Now we go to the Circuit of the Americas for a road course. Super speedway, mile and a half. Now we go to road course. NASCAR has done fabulous in the first month and a half or even 2 months of this to give us almost every track configuration that you can think of right off the bat. There is no lull in this, right? You go from, like Cody said, one of the shorter tracks on the circuit to a gigantic, long, huge supers road course and Circuit of the Americas there in Austin. So it's the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix. In that normal, it's that didn't really lose its spot, sort of. It kind of stayed in the same general position. So
move
now,
the races around.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of stayed where it was at. Now it's normal. But we've also seen weather in Austin in March. So, I mean, again, that's something to keep your eye out for as well. But again, we go from a super short track to the super long road courses, and we've seen that sort of play out as well. And it's just going to be an interesting transition from there. Looking forward to it, though, because obviously, every year these road courses give us a different take. We always think we know the road course ringers, and this year we don't even know if we're going to get all of the same road course ringers, because does the 16 car contain AJ Allmendinger for this race? You would think it did. Is SVG going to be out on this track? Like, where are we going to get some of these other names? Who's going to surprise us and be the road course person that's not on everybody's lips that takes the course?
Yeah, and this is always kind of the interesting one too, because it's earlier in the season, right? And you're right near the end of March here, and we don't go back to another road course until June, and there's still 6 on the schedule. So you've got backloaded on as far as the road courses go. So toss one in here early, again, while we were all different types of tracks to start the season. So Coda's always a good one, and really it's provided for some really good racing. I mean, we cashed a 40-1 on Ross a couple seasons ago in an epic finish. Last year, it kind of came down to the wire with Reddick winning, and Kyle Busch was kind of chasing him down at the end there. So, yeah, it's delivered great racing. We had the rain one before that. That was an interesting thing. Like you said, the weather can play into it, but another great track, and excited to go back there, and glad to see that Coda has kind of earned and kept its spot on the schedule here as it replaced that second Texas date from a while back.
And what's the natural progression step down from a 3.4 mile track? How about a 3/4 of a mile track in Richmond?
What other size have we not been to yet?
3/4 of a mile track. We got the Toyota Owners 400 over there in Richmond, that 400 lap, 300 mile race. I'm telling you right now, they literally are just, it's like a shotgun blast. They're just throwing all of it out there at once for us. And it's not going to be boring to start the season off. I'll tell you that much. And from a betting aspect of it, it's going to make handicapping these races a lot more challenging, because again, it's not like I can just settle back into the 1.5 mile mode and go, okay, well, this driver's good on this mile. Now I literally have to research something new every single week just to get ready for these races, which is fun. But again, it keeps you on your toes.
You're at your 7th points paying race of the season now, and you've not had anything similar to any of the tracks. I mean, the only close comparison really is your 2 super speedways to open it up. And again, super speedways are so unpredictable that it's hard to take one thing from one week to the next just because of the luck and things that come into it. So again, schedule makers keeping you on your toes. Love it. And really, we keep on our toes going into the next week too.
Yeah, again, taking another 1/2 mile or 1/4 mile away from us, and we'll go back down into a 1/2 mile territory at Martinsville for the
and even though it's a 1/2 mile like Bristol is, it's nothing comparable because they're completely different tracks.
Yep, that paperclip over there, Martinsville, is not the same as Bristol, so handicapping is different. But of course, these races not necessarily changing too much. Obviously, we know that it went Austin, Richmond, Bristol, Martinsville last year, where now it goes Austin, Richmond, Martinsville, because we moved Bristol up a little bit as well. And then we move to the Texas Motor Speedway. So we go back to Texas, but we're going to Fort Worth this time for the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 over there. And this is the Texas date that has actually moved, right? It was definitely not there because right after Martinsville last year was
Texas
Talladega.
was in the playoffs before, as you kind of remember, and now it's moved all the way up into April. So a big shift on the date here in this one. A little bit interesting. You're going to the state of Texas, not even a month apart between COTA and Texas Motor Speedway. But early in the season, if you want weather conditions to likely be a little warmer and better, not a bad move at all. I will say, so Martinsville, just to kind of go back and touch on that, you'll have the Clash to look at, which we saw some stuff translate, like Ryan Priest specifically translated very well from the Clash to Martinsville. So that's when you kind of start getting into races. And Texas as well, you'll have Vegas to look back on. So this is where we'll start being able to use from earlier in the season from, okay, how did they perform not that long ago on similar track styles? So that's where we kind of start getting into being able to use what we've learned before you throw in the big wild card in Talladega Super Speedway, of course.
Which is actually the next race right after that, Talladega at the Geico 500, another super speedway race right after you get to done with the Texas Motor Speedway. So, mile and a half now into a super speedway like Talladega, sort of the unofficial, first third, I suppose, of the season as we get to it. And even still, it kind of doesn't necessarily lose its prestige in the same sort of spot. Talladega, the 10th race of the season last year. But now you've got already 2 super speedways under your belt, as you already did heading into it. So it's just a matter of looking at what you're doing going into there. And then, of course, we close out April in Dover in the mile track there at the Worth 400. So again, from the big confines of a super speedway back down to Dover, which is a mile. Not something they haven't done before because they did it last year as well. But, you want to talk about grueling schedule, Cody. That is a grueling schedule. And as much as this is what happened last year, okay, so it went Daytona, Fontana, Vegas, Phoenix, Atlanta, Austin, Richmond, Bristol, Martinsville, Talladega. It seems like almost the same, but I don't know what it is about when you start introducing now where you go Daytona, Atlanta, Vegas, Phoenix, Bristol, Austin, Richmond, Martinsville, Texas, Talladega.
You're putting everything to the test early, and every single different type of racetrack. I mean, that's a majority, other than a street course. Of course, is the only thing we're not seeing basically at that point in time. So, and then Russ says Talladega starts to run. We'll have information we need then to cap the other races, and I think that's a good point. Again, I think early in the season, we'll still have the ability to kind of look back on last season, maybe catch the book sleeping on some people that we're big on or we think situations are good on. But once you get past Talladega, start having some races here where things are looking positive, and we're going to have a lot more to look back on and being able to cap going forward. Again, the first part of the season is a little bit tougher just because, so many things have changed from the previous season. We'll have new cars for Toyota. We'll have new cars for Ford. You've got teams switching manufacturers. You got drivers, new drivers. You got drivers moving around, all of that stuff. So it's going to take a little time to kind of get all of that put in the same mixing pot. Doesn't mean we can't hit 40-1s on Ross Chastain at COTA or 33-1s on Priest in the Clash of the Coliseum. But I think by this point in the schedule, this is where things really get rolling, and we should get to a comfortable spot where we can really, really be firing on all cylinders.
About a third of the way through the season, as it were, as far as 3 months are concerned. You get the first 3 months of the season out of the way. Then you hit to May, and then you go to Kansas for the Advent 400.
I will be there for this one.
I was about to say, Cody, you just told me something before we started. I want you to tell everybody because this is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I didn't even realize it would end up being this, but NASCAR has the fan rewards program, which you should go sign up for. You get points every time. So for every race that you check in on the app while it's going on, so it'll the app sends you a little notification, Truck Series live at Kansas or whatever, and you click on it and you click check in and it gives you points. And same thing for Xfinity, same thing for Cup. And then if you're at any of the tracks, you can check in from the track, you get points. I think if you play the fantasy game on NASCAR, you can get points for that too. or whatever, but like you don't really have to do much. Like I think if you buy tickets and merchandise, you get points too, but I didn't really do a ton of that at all last season. But then the end of the season, they have all kinds of stuff. And so like I was telling Rod, like of the things they had offered just for me doing the basics, like, I just checked into every race basically. You can wave the green flag for qualifying sessions, like for laps. And yeah, Rye says he's going to Martinsville thanks to the fan rewards. Yeah, you could get tickets for cup races, for truck races, for Xfinity races. You could ride in the pace car. So like that was one. And like it's at all the tracks early in the season, at least. Like Kansas was an option, Worldwide Technologies was an option, Martinsville, Daga, all these places. So yeah, there was get a picture in Victory Lane at different tracks with the winner, all kinds of stuff. And like I told her, they had gear on there. My daughter loves long socks. I got her a pair of NASCAR socks with the extra points I had left over. Like I'm going to do the wave a green flag at Kansas for qualifying. So yeah, somebody gets to start their qualifying lap, I get to wave the green flag. That's pretty cool. Like to be up there and see the track from the flag stand, watch the car go underneath you. I think it'll be pretty sweet. So I'm excited to do that. But yeah, definitely sign up for that because that's a really cool program. And then like your points, you have to use your points at the end of the season. Like you can't just let them go. But then wherever you like tier up, and so I'm in like an all-star tier or whatever. Like I'm 3 or 4 tiers up, and you keep that status going into the next season. So it's a pretty sweet thing that not a lot of people knew about. So there's your welcome, NASCAR, for your plug on the fan rewards. But I thought it was pretty cool because, and you could enter to win experiences too, like tickets to the Coliseum, like get in a sweepstakes type of thing if you're into that or whatever too. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff. And like this one wasn't even to wave the green flag for the qualifying session. You just pick that and that's it. I'm in. So as long as you're one of the first 36 people, or whatever. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So I definitely check that out and get signed up for that if that's something that would interest you, which why wouldn't it?
I'm going to be watching qualifying very closely on whatever station it's at because I want to see Cody waving the green flag for that. That's going to be friggin' awesome. All right, so we move away from Cody waving the flag at Kansas and head out to Darlington for the Goodyear 400 over there at the Darlington Raceway. Look at 1.3 miles. We know that Darlington, we know everybody looking forward to that one. So that's not necessarily a gigantic move from the 1.5 mile. We're only dropping, a couple of tenths of a mile to get down into Darlington. But of course, we also know that Darlington's not a easy race either.
The best stretch of racing last season, Kansas and Darlington back-to-back, 2 of the best races we had all season. That was a lot of fun. This race maybe even has a little more importance this year. Darlington has moved, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, to the cutoff race for the playoffs. And so, again, if you're going to be on that bubble, if you're going to be racing to try and get in on points, you're going to need a good, strong notebook from the spring race. So that race kind of has a little more extra importance because, how good you do and what you learn could really help you in a couple of months here when we get back to Darlington for the cutoff race before the playoffs.
And then after Darlington is the All-Star break, going back to North Wilkesboro for that one, where the Open and the All-Star race are happening on May the 19th.
Completely repaved North Wilkesboro, too. They repaved the entire surface, which will be interesting. It was an old-fashioned ass whooping by Kyle Larson last year. I don't know that repaving it will make the racing much better, but again, just going to North Wilkesboro, like that alone, worth it. I heard Derek talking about it on his All Things Go podcast the other day. Like that was one of his top moments from the season. Like just going back to North Wilkesboro, just the fact that we're there. It's a track that's rooted in the history of NASCAR. They've gone to for so long. It's a great thing. And so glad to see that continuing. I think we're moving towards a points race here in the next few seasons, but getting the All-Star race there again this season will again be great.
Well, and I'm looking forward basically just to the fact that we still get to bet on the All-Star race as well. I mean, I know that
in the Open, last year we had great opportunities, for making the race, all kinds of fun bets. So it was a good time.
Yep. And I hope the books continue to give us that as well. All right. So after the All-Star break, we move to the the Coca-Cola 600 Charlotte Motor Speedway, the big weekend. Obviously, I think this is the same weekend, right, that the Indy 500 is.
Indy 500, right? Monaco and F1. It is a beautiful race weekend. Always wonderful right there on Memorial Day weekend. This race is it's always a classic. 600 miles, longest race of the season, and it's worth every lap of it. It's always ends up being a great race. Champion of last season, Ryan Blaney, is the guy who won that race. So, it was a little foreshadowing, I guess, at that point. Who knows? I don't really think those things were correlated, but cool to see anyways.
Yeah. And again, it's just one of those things that it's a big, long race. Obviously, we know that Kyle Larson's going to be racing in the Indy 500 this year. So
yes, that's going to be the most. Yes, we got to watch Kyle Larson run 500 miles at Indy, get in a helicopter and run 600 miles in Charlotte, 1,100 miles. You just reminded me of that. How did I forget about that? I don't know, but I'm so excited. It's been a while. I remember as a kid, like watching, Tony Stewart do that, watching Kurt Busch do that. Now it's been a while since we've seen it done, and the time frame is even shorter now because they've pushed around the times, but it's going to be awesome to follow. And they're going to be talking about it during the Indy 500. They're going to show him get on the helicopter. NASCAR is going to be talking about how well he did at Indy or what his results were. Going to show him landing on the helicopter, right into the car. Pumped for that. That's going to be a great day.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Rye says he can't sit in a car that long, so we won't see Rye doing the double anytime soon, which is unfortunate, but that's okay.
I'm telling
He's
you,
also
right
calling Blaney to win the Coke 600.
I'm getting a little annoyed at sitting in cars, so I don't know that I would be able to do it as well either. But we'll see for that. All right, then we move on to the Worldwide Technology Raceway over there in Madison, Illinois, for the Enjoy Illinois 300. Really, again, it's the same sort of setup as it was last time. This is no different. We go from Charlotte to Gateway, and this is to start June, basically start the summer months, as it were. This is just another one of those races where it'll be a good, nice little break from that, but still in this schedule there is no break. There has not been a break. There will not be a week off for at least a decent amount of time here. And we'll tell you when that break off comes. But so far, it's been cranked every single week all over the country as we start getting into the hottest months of the year. And then they get to go stretch their legs at Sonoma on June 9th, the Toyota Save Mart 350 in Sonoma on the beautiful, beautiful Sonoma Raceway. That I will be at that race once again, because I'm not going to miss any more of these Sonoma races. I love these things. They're so much fun to be at.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just looking 6.5 hours to get to Worldwide Technology for me. I might have to see what I'm doing that weekend, because that'd be a really fun one to go to as well. I think that's a really cool track there, and should be a good race. And then Sonoma, always beautiful. Can't wait to see all your coverage from there, because that's always a lot of fun to see that as you go there and cover it.
To live vicariously through me in wine country.
Exactly.
All right. And then from there, they move on to Cody, someplace that we probably should figure out how to get to, because Iowa makes its appearance on the schedule for the 2024 season. 350 laps, 306 miles around the Iowa Speedway for the Iowa Corn 350, powered by ethanol. By All in All, what is the one from Cars 3?
Oh, I can't remember. That's but yes, Iowa Corn, not as good as Nebraska Corn. Of course, Nick Fortune should know that. But yeah, I am so pumped for this race. I'm really hoping it works out to make it there, because I'm really hoping to be there. I went to the IndyCar races there last season. It was so much fun. Hopefully we can figure it out. Maybe both of us can get there. I know we've already been offered a spot to do a live podcast if we do, which we've really got to figure out how to make that. We need to see. We got that meeting with the bosses coming up again. I think we need to drop this little nugget in there and see what we can get worked out, because this will be a lot of fun if we could both get there. Again, Rod and I, we're 320 episodes into this thing. We've never met in person. We live thousands of miles apart. So it would be great to be at a race together, take it in together. Finally, NASCAR gets to Iowa. I don't understand what took so long. NASCAR owns this track, so you would think they would want to go there. ARCA has had success there. Xfinity's had success before. This race sold out before the Daytona 500 did. All the grandstands sold out. The camping sold out. Like, people are excited. And here in the Midwest, we don't get, like I was just saying, Gateway's 6.5 hours. Like, that's the third closest track to me now that Iowa's in the mix, because Kansas is 3 hours from me. This race is 3 hours from me. And then it's, 8 hours before you get to anything else. So having people in the Midwest love racing, going to pack the place out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, great time. It's a great track. It's bad fast for being a short track. And it's a little different than anything else we have on the schedule, kind of. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see NASCAR go here. And this is kind of the replacement for Auto Club, right? This is what they slid in. And then there was talk of going to Montreal. Weren't able to figure that out. So they go here. I hope that this race ends up being such a success and such a good race that they're forced to keep it on the schedule going forward and have to do it. This is Father's Day weekend too, which is, and it's going to be packed. It's going to be a lot of people there. So this is probably one of the races I'm most looking forward to this season, just to see how it goes. Really hoping to make it there in person and have a great time.
So about just a little over 0.8 of a mile on the track, and it's definitely banked. That's for sure. 12 to 14 degrees on the banking. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is going to be a lot of fun to watch this play out in the NASCAR world. So looking forward to the debut of the Iowa Speedway onto the schedule. And then we move on to New Hampshire for our Loudon race as well. Really, again, so Nashville not on the circuit until later. So basically, they went from Sonoma to like I said, to Iowa. They kind of shuffled this around because last year it was Sonoma and then Nashville and then Chicago. So this year it's Sonoma, Iowa, and then New Hampshire rather. So New Hampshire sort of moves, about 3-4 races up on the schedule to take it there. And then we close out June with Nashville on the Nashville Super Speedway for the Ally 400. Of course, we know that's a 1.3 mile track. So again, it's a little bit of shuffling, right? We go from Sonoma, then we go to a short track, then we go to the mile track in New Hampshire, and then a mile and a third to Nashville. So a little bit of shuffling in that capacity as well.
Yeah, again, a beautiful mixture of different styles of tracks. I can't commend the NASCAR schedule makers enough for the mixture they're making. And you don't really have, we've not really had any like similar tracks back to back at all this season so far through this schedule. It's been different stuff. You don't have, there were points years ago where it was mile and a half, 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 short track, mile and a half, mile and a half, road course. And it got a little bit repetitive, and you're not getting that now. It's a different race every single week. I absolutely love how this is laying out.
But also shout out to all of the different tracks for allowing for this to happen. I mean, obviously we knew that, Bristol's always been a thing, Richmond, Martinsville, Darlington, like all those have been, but like you said, I mean, a lot of those cookie cutter tracks are not necessarily cookie cutter tracks anymore. They've done something. Atlanta has done something to sort of shake that up. Right. I mean, Bristol, even when it threw dirt on it for a little bit, tried to shake it up a little bit. So, I mean, kudos to the evolution of these tracks, right? And the introduction of some of these other road courses, of some of these other types of Iowas and stuff like that to make it to where it's different. And speaking of different, July begins with the most different of them all. And that's the Chicago Street Race back.
The annual SVG 200.
Yeah, so 165 miles, 75 laps in Chicago for the second year. I would love to see it not rain. I would love to see it be decent enough weather to where we can just get a good race.
Yes, that will be the biggest thing. If we can get nice weather, if the concerts and everything go off, it could be a totally different story this year. It was fun last year, and it was exciting, and obviously the SVG story, great story. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I want to see a sunny weekend. Again, this is right after the 4th of July on the 7th. It's kind of 4th of July weekend extended, right? So yeah, very, very excited for this race again. I think it's a great concept. It's something different. Kind of getting into IndyCar F1 territory. Love it. Again, the ringers that we might see come to this race. Last year, it worked out. A ringer won it, right? Who else wants to enter this race? And, we're likely to see SVG, obviously, again in this race. And Brody Kostecki will probably be in it. And who's in that Roush 60 car that we have now and everything. Going to be fun to see what other names might decide to jump over here and run this race. Why doesn't Penske add another car? Bring another car into the fold. Bring one of your IndyCar guys. Get get a Willpower or a Joseph Newgarden over in for this. Like, let's make it a whole thing. I would love it. But yeah, excited to see this on the schedule again. I think we'll see Chicago another year or two before maybe we go to New York City or LA. Maybe that's what replaces the Coliseum, right? And move this around. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but very excited to see this racing. That's another one. I want to go to so many races, Rod. Chicago's about 8 hours from here. 4th of July weekend is tough with my beer business job because it's kind of a busy weekend for beer, but I might have to see if I can work some strings and get over there for this, because that'd be a pretty cool one to see in person too, I think.
Well, hey, it's the week after the 4th of July instead of the week of the 4th of July this time. Last year it was on the 2nd of July. This year it's on the 7th. So the Grant Park 165 will be another fun one to partake. Then we move on to Pocono, the Tricky Triangle, highpoint.com 400. The three-cornered rather track over there in Pocono. So again, if you're keeping track, right, you get Nashville, you get Chicago, you get Pocono, all different configurations of tracks. And then they finally get a break. Absolutely finally get a break. They get a couple of weeks off in July after this grueling first part of it before they head over to Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400.
Indy first, and then it's the break.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
21st, and then you get the 2 weeks off. But yeah, Brickyard 400 is back on the oval at Indianapolis, where they should be. Rid of the Indy Road Course, which is fine. That race was not that great anyways. And the Indy 5, the Brickyard 400 has had boring races over the years, but had a lot of great races with the 1.5 mile package lately. Again, this track's a little different. It'll just be good to see. I think this is the 30th anniversary. 94 was the first season that they were there, so can't wait to see them get back on the oval here. This is a huge addition. I think there's going to bring a lot of fans in. It's going to bring a lot of eyes in. And then, yeah, it's going to be a 2-week break after this, the Olympics. This is during the NBC stretch, of course. NBC sends everyone to cover the Olympics. I'm sure Dale Jr. even will be there. And so they take the break for that, which gives us the time to catch our breaths. We should have some SRX racing during this time. F1, IndyCar will all be going, I think, as well. So plenty of stuff to talk about still, which will be great. Gives us a chance to catch up on futures, right? Take a look at what's going on in the futures market, what things are out there before we head back to the final stretch before the playoffs.
Which begins in Richmond, back to Richmond again for the Cookout 400. That begins on August 11th. So another trip to Richmond for this. Now there's 3/4 of a mile. Buescher won this race last year. Can he continue to do that this coming season? Well, we talked about that in the futures, and we talked about in the win totals. So go back and listen to that. And then we go to Michigan for the Firekeeper Casinos 400, ending August with the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. Again, 3 completely different track configurations as we go from 3/4 of a mile to 2 miles to, of course, the super speedway there, 2.5 miles in Daytona.
Yeah, the Daytona race will be big because obviously you're getting towards the end of the regular season. Worst mistake NASCAR could have ever made, changing this from not being the cutoff race. I understand that you want Darlington to be on Labor Day weekend, which is the 1st of September, Labor Day. It's gotta be, right?
Yeah, I mean because it's the one that they wanted to be.
Yeah. Which is Daytona as the cutoff race has been so fucking good, Rod. Why? I get that the Southern 500 and you want it on Labor Day, and okay, but come on, you don't move something around to make this work. Put Daytona as the cutoff race. Huge mistake. This is pretty much really the only thing I'm super disappointed about in NASCAR, because why do you take this away from being the cutoff race? It has been so dramatic. It's been so good. I hate it. It's still going to have big implications, right? Because there's going to be people on the bubble points wise. You can't afford to have a bad race. It could really cost some people. If you get your Corey LaJoie types or your Michael McDowell types that snag a win here and lock themselves in and cut it down to where only 1 or 2 guys are getting in on points at this point, it's still going to have its dramaticness to it, but it's not going to be the same, which is unfortunate. But Daytona in the summer, night race on Saturday night, it's always a beautiful time. It's always fun. You know how much I love betting on super speedways, so excited for that one, of course. but before the Southern 500 the next week at Darlington.
Yep. Southern 500 at Darlington. Labor Day is the 2nd of September, by the way, Monday. So this is Sunday, the day before. So it's Labor Day weekend, but it's definitely not. But like Cody said, that's the cutoff race, because then we start into the round of 16. Atlanta, we start off with a super speedway race to begin the whole thing off. How crazy is that?
Kyle Larson's not a fan, but I am a fan of. I love it having multiple super speedways in the playoffs. Having Atlanta, this one obviously is moving from really kind of early summer. The Atlanta races were close together the last couple of seasons, and so yeah, you're moving it all the way here to the first round of the playoffs, and that could really shake some things up, right? If you get a playoff driver, say a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins the Daytona 500 and gets in, then all of a sudden, he wins at Atlanta here, and he's punched his way into the next round. Somebody's going to get bounced out that wouldn't have gotten bounced out otherwise. Somebody's going to put themselves in a points hole that they're really going to have to make up the next 2 weeks. It's going to start out for a dramatic beginning to the playoffs. So I do like that. Again, a super speedway race should be the cutoff race, but I will take Atlanta being the first race of the playoffs, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
You want to talk about a dramatic start to the playoffs? Let's go super speedway road course short track. That's what they're doing. Atlanta for the Quaker State 400, like we said. Then you go to Watkins Glen for the Go Bowling at the Glen. And then you move to Bristol for the night race over there, the Bass Pro Shops night race. You want to talk about a crazy start to the postseason. This is exactly it.
Playoffs? That's we're talking playoffs. Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. It's a great stretch. Again, you're kind of testing a bunch of different strengths and stuff here, and you've got to hit it. You got the super speedway, you get the road course, one of the traditional road courses at Watkins Glen that's been around a long time. Then you shoot over to Bristol. Again, we talked about Bristol earlier. And again, this will be the second concrete race at Bristol of the season. No dirt race in the spring. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll cut it down to 12 after that Bristol night race on that is Saturday night. So that'll be good too.
Well, and you look at it too, Watkins Glen is moving down into the round of 16. It was
from the summertime. It was it was in the regular season before. So
we're definitely getting a dose of this in the beginning rounds. If you make it past that one into the round of 12, well, Kansas is waiting for you the second time around, only to have Talladega right there, and then of course the Roval to close it out. So
you got 2 wild card races in super speedways in both these first 2 rounds. It just adds an extra element to the playoffs that is going to be really exciting, because again, you have a rough race at Atlanta, you start behind the 8 ball. If you have a rough race at Talladega, you're only going to have one chance to get it back, and that's going to be at a road course. This is great. Kansas moves up a little bit here because I think it's been an October race here recently, but moving it back into September here earlier on in the round of 12. And then Dega again. I think the next big mistake that they're making here is keeping the Roval on the schedule. Charlotte 1.5 miles are great right now. Just use the fucking oval. It's right there. You're going to the same place. Use the oval, not the Roval. But hopefully the cardboard is not out in full effect this year. And oh well.
Well, so listen, to put it in perspective, here were the playoffs last year: Darlington, Kansas, Bristol, Texas, Talladega, the Roval, Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, Phoenix. That was the cutoff after Daytona. So that was Darlington, Kansas, Bristol, right? Texas, Talladega, the Roval, Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, Phoenix. So
you get 2 road courses in the playoffs this year, which you didn't have last year. You get 2 super speedways, which you didn't have last year. So yeah, really changing it up and making it a little different, making it tougher to get through those first 2 rounds. And you really have to survive because when it comes to road courses, when it comes to super speedways, it's not 2 road courses anymore. It's not 4 super speedways anymore. You've got 6 road courses. You got 6 speedways. It's a part of being in the series and racing. And if you want to crown a champion, you've got to get through those tough tests. And if you're not good at road courses, get better. If you're not good at super speedways, get better. You got to get a lot of luck in the super speedways as well, but that's part of playoffs. It's the ball bouncing the right way, right? And putting yourself in the right situation. So I do like the construction of that. And then of course we kind of finish out the final 4 races. I think they're exactly the same as they've been the last few seasons.
It's a third of the entire season, if you really want to break it down that way. So that's exactly it. So definitely, want to get those nailed down, especially since it's a big part of the playoffs now. And then speaking of which, we wrap up with the final 3 of the playoffs proper before we get to the championship race. Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, not much of a change there. Same difference. And then we head into Phoenix for the championship. So after just a complete and total gauntlet of a ride through the playoffs, if you make it down to the round of 8, things settle back down a little bit to normal. So hopefully you're a driver who's accustomed to making it to the round of 8, and then those 3 tracks will kind of play in your favor before we finally move to Phoenix for the championship. But I got to tell you, Cody, on paper, this entire schedule looks to be probably one of the more exciting that we've seen in a very long time, just from the sheer variety of where we're going versus the new tracks versus the second-year appearances of some of these other tracks. To me, this just feels like it's going to be a wild ride from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the variety and the different tracks, not going to places back to back. Like we've touched on that multiple times. That's huge. Taking the dirt off, I think that's good. You're going back to the Coliseum for a third time. We kind of get to see a couple of years under our belt. Going back to Chicago with hopefully better weather. You're back at Coda, right? And we had the rain race, and it was like, but then we get a great race the next season where it's, 4 guys coming down to the end, and guys are wrecking guys. You're cashing 40-1 tickets, kind of hoping for something like that from a Chicago year 2. You get a toss in the Iowas, which is a lot of fun. Some pretty good movement around of the schedule and where they're placing races. Not Daytona, not being the final regular season race. That's the one I don't like, but the mixture in the playoffs, I think it's a great schedule. I think we're primed for a good season. And, I think it's 40 days until the Clash of the Coliseum at this point. Oh man, that's a month basically, Rod. A month plus a little bit. Almost there, baby. We're almost there.
We're almost Sterling Marlin away from the Busch Clash.
Yes, let's go.
All right.
Silver bullet.
So here's the thing. As we look forward to it, though I was actually going to say that it takes us until the very end of the season to go to back-to-back mile and a halves, which I find to be absolutely incredible. So, all right, that is it for the schedule. We have pretty much broken it down. And really, again, this was more just to give you guys the opportunity to kind of go over it with, because, I know you probably aren't sitting there with the schedule in front of you, and you probably don't even think about it when you look at it. You're like, oh, okay. But, as far as being able to sort of get primed for the season ahead, I think this was a good dive into it, just to kind of get your head into what we're expecting this coming season, which is a lot of the unexpected, because, again, a lot of this stuff is these guys aren't going to be bringing the same car setups to the tracks day in and day out. It's just going to be on their toes for the entirety of the season. And I think we're going to be with them on our toes as well.
Yeah. And this primes you for the episode later on in the off season, when I talk Rod into letting us pick a winner for each race before the season starts. So, now you'll know what races are coming up.
I love it. Let's do it. And then we'll have the race predictions.
Yeah. Then we can keep track. We got to do that. We got to go through and write down a winner for each race, and then look back at the end of the season and see how close we got with our preseason predictions.
I think we can fit that in a month. We've got a month. I think we can fit that in.
We got. All right. Beautiful.
All right, beautiful. All right. Well, then, as we prepare for that one, let's go ahead and put this episode to bed and send everybody off on their way to hopefully go to sleep and wake up tomorrow, one day closer to NASCAR racing, which
tomorrow will only be 39 days away, which will be great. Can't really think of a 39. Boy, that's a tough.
Ryan Newman
number.
in the 39?
He was. Oh, look at Rod being the number savant here. Ryan Newman ran the 39 for SHR for a while, so there you go. Great poll. If you have ideas too of stuff you want to hear us talk about, the off season's getting short, right? We only got a month left before we're really diving in, but shoot us. This is something different. Just going through the schedule, looking at it, talking about. We ended up going an hour and 10 minutes on just the schedule for next season, so we can talk about just about anything. But if you've got ideas, suggestions for what you want to hear us talk about, we're here for you guys, and we can tell you people are still listening, and we appreciate it. So, shoot us DMs, hit us up in the Discord, whatever. And we'll cover all kinds of different topics. So love it.
You keep listening, we'll keep talking. That's all there is to it. You know that, and you guys have known that for years. So hopefully you guys continue to do so, because we love it and we just aren't going to stop. So
exactly.
Well, we will stop right now, and we'll go ahead and let you guys get on with the rest of your day. But until then, Cody, remind everyone where they can find you away from this in the social media world.
Yep. Follow me on the X at @Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my work over there. Ton of stuff going on. F1 Gambling Podcast. I mentioned we just recorded an episode. That'll be out later this evening, but check that out as well. And getting closer. We're almost there. Almost the new year. It's almost time to go racing again. Let's go.
Hang tight, man. I'm looking for more odds. Like I'm telling you, there's something going on in this world, and if they can give us odds for it, we'll break them down.
Xfinity and trucks, like we had last year, we had championship odds, we had win totals, we had all that. So I'm expecting that to all be coming here in the near future. And then we can get it, we'll have episodes covering all that stuff as well.
Well, when we do, we'll bring them to you. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's football, whether it's racing, whether it's badminton, tiddlywinks, I don't care. I'm writing for it. I love it. So, all right. We'll be back again later this week with more. And until then, everyone, let's go racing and let it ride.
Through the darkness, we'll